Okay, class A, next set of notes, your indirect objects and your indirect object pronouns. That's what IOs and IOPs stand for. So go ahead and write all this stuff down in your notes. Now, your English teachers will tell you that the indirect object is the person who receives the direct object, that's what DO stands for, or the person who benefits from the action of the verb. Go ahead and write that down. But to me, that's a very complicated way of explaining things, where I have a question you can ask that will help you find your indirect object 95% of the time, or even higher. To find it, ask to or for whom is something being done. And let's add that sometimes it can be from whom. So, do all sentences have indirect objects? No. But if you want to find out if it does have one, ask yourself that question and you'll find it. Moving on. And of course, as always, pause if I'm going too quickly and rewind. Indirect object pronouns match the indirect object, I'm abbreviating here to make your notes shorter, and either replace or go with it in a sentence. Now this is new. This is what makes indirect object pronouns different from other types of pronouns. You guys know that usually pronouns replace nouns. So you take out the noun and put the indirect object pronoun in. These don't quite work this way. Perhaps you remember working with gustar, and gustar we use to say if someone likes something or not, and we would say, if I want to say that, for example, Jim likes something, I can't just say Jim gusta la pizza. You guys know that in a gustar sentence you have to have me, te, le, nosos, or lace. I have to say Jim le gusta. And Jim is the indirect object, but I also have the indirect object pronoun le in the sentence. If you don't understand that, that's okay. We'll explain it more later. Alright, so you need to remember that these are different. If something is being done to or for someone, you must have an IOP. Then if you need to add clarification or want to add emphasis, put a in front of the indirect object. Again, if this is too much information, just write it down. We'll process it together later. And just a reminder, you can't yo. So for example, if I want to say I like something, you guys know you can't say yo me gusta. You have to say a mí me gusta. And you can't tu. You guys know that you say a ti te gusta. These are just reminders. Go ahead and write that information down. I realized I forgot to close my parentheses here. And of course it goes on to the next line. But anyway. Alright, so your indirect object pronoun choices are, in Spanish, I've already mentioned them, me, te, le, no, sos, les. And in English, this is how they have to be translated, to or for me, to or for you, and so on and so forth. If you want full credit in the class, you will always, if you see an indirect object, include to or for in your translation. So keep that in mind. Go ahead and make sure you guys have all of this information down. Press pause if you don't. I'm going to move on. Okay, you guys already have this information written down. I'm just following it up. That regular pronoun placement rules apply. So go ahead and write that down next in your notes after what we just wrote. That regular pronoun placement rules apply. And let me just remind you, you don't have to write this in your notes. We'll put a sticky note in this spot in your notes next class, but here are your regular pronoun placement rules. In front of a conjugated verb or negative command, attached at the end of an infinitive, present participle, or affirmative command. That's just a reminder. Okay, so going back to this, let's write down some examples. If I have this sentence, el profesor le está explicando la lección, I am saying the teacher, you guys know that está explicando means is explaining right now the lesson. But I'm not done yet. Here I have le, and if I go back one screen, it says that le means to or for him, her, it, or you formal, because it's in the bottom left-hand box. So that's what this sentence is saying. Now if I go down one more sentence, I have el profesor le está explicando la lección a Juan. Now I have the clarification or emphasis. I couldn't just put Juan in the sentence, I had to say a Juan. Now this sentence clarifies that the teacher is explaining the lesson to Juan. Keep in mind, I can't get rid of le. I have to have it. But since I wanted to be more clear than this sentence, I added clarification. a Juan. In English, we say the teacher's explaining the lesson to Juan. We don't say to him, to Juan. So if in English both of them are here, we only use the clarification. So go ahead and write those down. Press pause if you're not done. Alright, so we need to know how to write a sentence that says something is happening to or for someone. There are steps. For some of you, this will just make sense, but for some of you, you'll need to follow the steps. So write this down in your notes. Step 1. Find and state the subject and verb phrase. Notice I've underlined subject and verb phrase. Please do that as well, because we're going to be diagramming sentences together a little bit. And this is how we label them. I'm going to put subject in parentheses because you guys know that in Spanish you can sometimes leave out a subject if it's already clear. Step 2. State the DO, the direct object, or the direct object pronoun. I have this in parentheses as well because I suppose there might be times when you don't have a direct object, but typically if you have a sentence with an indirect object, it's also going to have a direct object, but it's in parentheses because you might not, like in sentences with gustar. And I have a circle around that because you guys already know from our direct object notes that is how we label direct objects and direct object pronouns. Step 3. Find by asking to or for whom, and then state your indirect object pronoun and place it correctly according to the verb. So your choices are me, te, le, no, sos, les, and you guys know that pronouns have to be placed in relationship to the type of verb that you have. Oh, do I have 2 step 2s? That's silly. Let's change that. Step 3. All right, and last but not least, I need to change this to 4 now. Step 4. Add indirect object pronoun clarification or emphasis if necessary. And we do that by having a plus any object of a preposition. Okay, let's practice. We give many gifts to the children. First thing I want to do is find and state my subject. So we, of course we don't have to state it, but we can. And then give. Then state the direct object pronoun, who or what's being given, gifts, many gifts, so I'm going to state that, muchos regalos. And then step 3, find or state the indirect object pronoun, because if anything's being done to or for someone, we must have an IOP. Since it's happening to the children, my IOP will be les, and I'm putting it correctly in front of the conjugated verb because that's our rule according to pronoun placement. And I'm going to add clarification if I need it. Right now this sentence just says we give many gifts to them. It's a lovely sentence. It just doesn't say to the children yet. So then I have to add a los niños. All right. Let's try another one. My dad prepares lunch for me and my brother. My dad is the subject. That's state 1. Or step 1. And then step 2. Conjugate my verb for my subject, prepara, or what's being prepared, lunch, so almuerzo. Step 3, put in the indirect object pronoun, because if something's being done to or for someone, you must have an IOP. It's happening for me and my brother, so the IOP is nos. I'm going to put it before my conjugated verb. Right now, this is a lovely sentence that says my dad prepares lunch for us, but this sentence says for me and my brother, so to clarify, a mí, because you can't a yo, y a mi hermano. Me for my, no accent. So this one has an accent, this one doesn't. And she is cutting the lawn for Dad right now. So my subject is she. I do need it because está cortando would not be clear without it or context. She is cutting the lawn. So that's my direct object. For Dad. So my IOP is going to be lay. I can either put it before the conjugated verb, so I could put lay right here before está, or I can attach it right here at the end of cortando, and if I do that, because it's a present participle, if I do that, I just need an accent on cortando. And right now this is a lovely sentence that says she is cutting the grass for him, her, or it, but it's not clear to or for whom it's happening, so I'm going to add my clarification or emphasis with a papa for Dad. And again, my IOP could have gone before the conjugate form of a star because you can always put your pronouns before your conjugated verb. And that's a little bit of practice with writing sentences with just an indirect object pronoun and not a direct object pronoun, which is going to be what we're going to be doing next, two object pronouns in the same sentence. So we will be able to say, we give them to them, or my dad prepares it for us, and things like that. Let's just get those highlighters out one more time to make our notes a little bit more user-friendly. Let's highlight to write a sentence that says something is happening to or for someone. And then these are our 4 steps, so highlight that. We should also highlight our indirect object pronouns section so we can easily find this important information about how indirect object pronouns can replace or go with the indirect object in the same sentence. And let's just highlight that an indirect object is found by asking to or for, sometimes from whom. Make your notes look like my notes, and they will be wonderful to turn in for full credit. Good job.